Well, in other breaking news this afternoon, the release of a report by the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, which reveals extensive failures by local authorities and police forces, and finds that the sexual exploitation of children by groups of abusers happens more than official statistics say. The report, which is the inquiry's 18th, focuses on abuse by organised networks. It looks at 6 case study areas that have not been the subject of well-publicised investigations into that issue: St Helens, Tower Hamlets, Swansea, Durham, Bristol and Warwickshire, and the experiences of 33 children from those areas. The report finds it is clear that the sexual exploitation of children by groups of associated abusers continues to be widespread and happens to a greater extent than official statistics indicate. It says extensive failures by local authorities and police forces meant they failed to keep pace with the changing nature of this crime. It also found that children were being sexually exploited by networks in all parts of England and Wales in, quote, the most degrading and destructive ways. It said that there is a flawed assumption that child sexual exploitation is decreasing, when in reality, it has just become more of a hidden problem, as well as a reluctance from some local authorities to be labelled the next Rotherham or Rochdale, meaning they did not give authorities the necessary data on the problem in their area. This guy's Ali Fortescue joins me now. Ali, the 18th report, and damning, absolutely damning.
Once again, an absolutely damning report. As you say, this is it. It has just come out in the last few moments, almost 200 pages long, and it makes incredibly uncomfortable reading. You were saying there some of the most difficult quotes. It says that in all parts of the country, children being sexually exploited by networks in the most degrading way. It said that there have been extensive failures, and I quote, from local authorities and police who've struggled to keep pace with change. Now, look, at a number of different local authority areas, including Durham, including Bristol, Swansea in Wales, and spoke to more than 30 different children, as well as people who had survived abuse between 2003 and 2011. It's hard to bring you all of their stories, but I will bring you one of them, a story of a 12-year-old girl who was first abused at the age of 12. Her perpetrator was imprisoned, but just 2 years later, she was abused by 20 men. And then a few months after that, the charges were dropped. They were charged, but they were never prosecuted. A few months later, she was abducted by another group of men and abused again. So this report highlights the patterns of abuse that were happening. It says that too often people who were victims were being treated like they themselves were offenders, that the perpetrators themselves were not being properly investigated. Now, as you say, this is the latest in this broader inquiry, which has looked at a number of different institutions and individuals, including, for example, Lord Janet's looked at the church, it's looked at councils like Rotherham and Lambeth. This is the 18th report. The final one into residential schools is expected next month. But as you say, more really uncomfortable, damning reading about how some of the most vulnerable children were let down.